Hello, my dears. I'm Natty, and I love sharing heartwarming stories by the fireplace. Ready to listen? Get comfortable and let's begin. The Sparrow's Gift, A Winter Romance, Part 1. Snow had fallen through the night, burying the old town beneath a quiet, silvery blanket. It was the kind of morning when chimneys smoked lazily, windows glowed with warm light, and footsteps on the cobblestones sounded muffled, as though respecting the stillness of winter. High above the street, beneath a sharply slanted roof, Lily sat at her small wooden table, cupping her hands around a steaming mug of tea. Her attic was small but tidy, its walls faded and uneven, its furniture mismatched, its stove too weak to fully warm the space. Yet Lily liked it. It was hers, a tiny island of peace she'd carved out of a life that had not been easy. She had lost her parents long ago, far earlier than anyone should have to say goodbye, and she'd learned to rely on herself. She was proud of that, quietly proud, in the way people with soft souls often are. But pride didn't warm the winter nights, and loneliness had moved into her attic long before the snow outside did. Still, she had her routines. Every morning, just as she finished her tea and began gathering her things for work, she heard it. Tap, tap, tap. The sparrow. Her sparrow, really, though she had never said it out loud. A quick, bright-eyed little creature who arrived every day at the same time as precisely as any church bell. "Good morning, little one," she whispered, moving to the window. The sparrow hopped excitedly, chirping in a way that sounded almost offended she'd made him wait. "All right," I laughed softly. "I'm coming." She opened the window a tiny crack, just enough to slip a few crumbs onto the sill. The sparrow pecked eagerly, wings fluttering. "You really should learn some patience," she said, shaking her head. "But I suppose you're the only one who visits me every morning, so I'll forgive you." The sparrow looked up with a chirp that almost sounded like agreement. Lily glanced at the little clock on the shelf. "Oh dear, I'm late." She pulled on her coat, wrapped a scarf twice around her neck, and headed to the bakery where she had worked for nearly a decade. It was honest work, warm work, and though the mornings were unbearably early, she liked the rhythm of it. The kneading, the rising, the scent of fresh dough. And the baker, old Mr. Harding, always insisted she take one croissant for herself. "You look like a girl who forgets to eat breakfast," he'd grumble, though the softness in his eyes betrayed him. Today, though, Lily felt the cold a little more sharply. The holidays always did that, stirred old memories, reopened quiet aches. Christmas was a time for families, for warmth, for laughter shared around tables, for people who had someone waiting for them. Lily did not. Or rather, she hadn't. Not yet. Not until the morning. Everything changed. A strange scene in the snow. When her shift ended, Lily returned to her attic, eager to warm her frozen hands around another cup of tea. The sparrow was waiting, earlier than usual, pacing impatiently on the sill. "You again," she laughed. "Don't tell me you're hungry already." But the sparrow wasn't hopping in his usual cheerful way. He was restless, jerky, chirping rapidly and glancing toward the street. "What is it?" Lily frowned, moving to the window. Then she saw it. A sleek black car had pulled up across the road, gleaming, out of place in the narrow, old-fashioned street. A young man sat inside, perhaps mid-30s, handsome and sharply dressed. His dark coat contrasted starkly with the pale morning snow, and there was something in the way he sat, still, too still, that caught her attention. He was holding a small velvet box. Lily froze. "Oh," she whispered. The man stared at the box for a long moment, exhaled a cloud of white breath and finally stepped out of the car. He walked to the bench under the bare tree and sat down. Snowflakes clung gently to his hair. He opened the box. The diamond inside sparkled like a frozen tear. "Lucky girl," Lily murmured, her voice carrying a hint of wistful longing. The sparrow, however, chirped sharply, fluffed his wings, and, before Lily could react, he launched himself out the window. "Wait!" Lily gasped. The small bird swooped across the street in a blur of brown and white. The young man blinked, startled, and the sparrow snatched the ring right out of the box. "What? Hey!" the man shouted, jumping to his feet. Lily's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh no! No, no, no!" The sparrow didn't stop. He flew straight back to her attic and landed triumphantly on the sill, dropping the glittering ring beside her teacup. "Are you insane?" Lily whispered to the bird. "You can't just steal engagement rings." The sparrow chirped proudly. Across the street, the young man stood turning in frantic circles, helplessly watching the tiny thief vanish. Lily leaned out the window and shouted, "Sir! Up here! The ring is here! My bird took it!" The man looked up sharply. Then he hurried toward her building. Lily sucked in a breath. "Oh goodness, I need to... Where did I put..." She glanced in a panic around her little room. "Well, too late now!" Footsteps echoed up the narrow wooden stairs. Her heart hammered. She opened the door and met the eyes of the man whose engagement ring lay on her windowsill. Part 2. The Ring, the Stranger, and the Snowstorm. Lily stood frozen in the doorway, her fingers curled nervously around the edge of the doorframe. The man on the stairs paused, catching his breath from the climb. His dark hair was slightly tousled from the snow and the rush, his cheeks flushed from the cold and the unexpected chase. "Hi," he said, breath fogging in the chilly attic hallway. I think your bird stole something from me." Lily's lips parted. "Yes, he did. I'm so terribly sorry. Please, come in." The man stepped inside, automatically wiping the snow from his coat, as if entering a place where gentleness was required. His gaze moved around the room, and then it found her sparrow proudly perched beside the velvet ring box. Lily cleared her throat. "There it is," she said softly, lifting the ring. "I promise he has never done anything like this before." Daniel exhaled, visibly relieved. "Thank you," he said, accepting it. "I thought I was losing my mind, or that I'd offended some very small but extremely motivated criminal." Lily let out an involuntary laugh, gentle, warm, the kind that seemed to surprise even her. The man smiled in response. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Lily." They stood there for a moment, two strangers in a tiny cold attic, snow dusting the window behind them, a mischievous bird watching like a matchmaker. Daniel looked back at the ring. His expression shifted, softened, then tightened, as though he'd remembered something painful. "I was going to propose today," he said quietly. Lily's heart dipped. "Oh, I hope I didn't ruin anything." No, it wasn't you, or the bird." He hesitated, rubbing the edge of the velvet box with his thumb. "It's just, I wasn't sure I should go through with it. I sat there for 20 minutes thinking about it, and then your little friend made the decision for me." He tried to smile, but it faltered. Lily didn't pry, though curiosity pricked at her chest. "Well, I'm glad you have the ring back," she said softly. Daniel nodded, but he didn't turn to leave. His eyes drifted to the kettle on her tiny stove. Is that tea? Oh! Lily blinked. Would you like some? This place is cold. I mean, all attics are cold, but this one feels especially ambitious about it. Daniel chuckled. I'd love some tea. Warm tea in a cold room. Lily moved around, boiling water, setting out 2 mismatched cups. She felt his eyes on her sometimes, curious but kind. She wasn't used to being observed, not by anyone except her Sparrow. This is a cozy place, Daniel said. Most people call it small, cramped, or barely livable, but he'd said cozy. Lily glanced at him gratefully. It's old, but it's mine. The wind visits more often than I'd like, but I've made peace with it. Daniel smiled into his tea. So, you live here alone? Lily nodded. I've been on my own since I was a child. I work at Harding's Bakery. It isn't glamorous, but it's warm and smells like bread. And I have my little visitor. The sparrow chirped proudly. Daniel leaned back slightly. You know, when that bird stole the ring, I thought it was some sort of sign. A sign? From who? Daniel shrugged. I don't know. The universe. Fate. Or poor decision-making. Lily smiled, hiding the way her stomach fluttered. So, are you still going to propose? He stared at his tea. I don't know, he said quietly. The truth is, things between us haven't been the same. I wanted to make it right, but proposing because something feels broken doesn't feel right either. Lily nodded. That makes sense. He looked at me then, really looked at me. You're very easy to talk to. Lily flushed, startled by the warmth of his tone. I don't often talk to people, only customers, and Mr. Harding, and, well, the bird. Daniel's lips twitched. Apparently he's very proactive. Lily groaned with embarrassment. Please, don't encourage him. A moment before goodbye. After tea, Daniel stood reluctantly, brushing his hands over his coat as if preparing to return to reality. Thank you, he said gently, for the tea, for not panicking, for... He gestured vaguely towards the sparrow. Helping me recover stolen property. Lily smiled. Daniel hesitated again. If it's all right, may I stop by sometime? Maybe bring you coffee from somewhere that's not a bakery you've already worked in for 6 hours? Lily blinked. Yes, I'd like that. Daniel's smile widened, genuine, bright. I'll see you soon then. He took one last look at her attic, the stove, the teacups, the sparrow, and then disappeared down the stairs. When the door clicked shut, Lily pressed her hand to her heart. Her chest felt warm, alive. The sparrow hopped closer, tilting his head proudly. Well, Lily murmured, that was unexpected. The sparrow chirped triumphantly, as if to say, You're welcome. Part 3. Coffee, snowfall, and something like hope. The next few days passed slowly, too slowly for Lily's liking. Work at the bakery was the same as always, the soft glow of lamps before dawn, the thump of dough on wooden tables, the scent of rising bread that wrapped around her like a blanket she wished she could take home. But something was different. Lily caught herself glancing at the door each time it opened, half expecting Daniel to walk in, shaking snow from his coat, offering the warm, crooked smile she couldn't stop thinking about. Waiting for someone? Mr. Harding asked one morning, raising a thick gray eyebrow. Lily nearly dropped the tray of fresh rolls. No, just tired. He didn't believe her, but he let it go. The sparrow, on the other hand, did not. Every evening he perched on her windowsill, puffing up his feathers, giving her looks that seemed suspiciously close to, "Well, where is he?" Lily groaned. "Stop judging me. People don't just come back." The sparrow chirped, as if to say, "This one will." And the sparrow was right. A knock at the attic door. 3 days after their strange meeting, as Lily was brushing crumbs off her small table, she heard footsteps on the stairs, quick, purposeful. Then a knock. Her heart jumped. She opened the door. Daniel stood there, cheeks flushed from the cold, snowflakes clinging to his dark hair, holding 2 paper cups and a small brown bag. "Hi," he said breathlessly. "I brought coffee and something else." Lily's breath caught. "You came back?" "Of course I did," he said with a smile. "Your bird didn't steal anything today, did he? I wanted to arrive with both hands free." Lily laughed softly and stepped aside to let him in. The sparrow chirped a greeting, hopping excitedly along the windowsill. "Oh, good," he said. "He remembers me. I was afraid he'd hold a grudge." Lily shook her head. "He likes you. That's rare." "Well, that's lucky. I don't want to disappoint someone with wings." Cinnamon buns and confessions. Daniel handed her a cup of coffee, hot, fragrant, sweet. Then he opened the brown paper bag and revealed 2 cinnamon buns, still warm. "I stood in line for these," he said proudly. "Apparently, they're the best in town." Lily blinked. "You bought pastries for a girl who works in a bakery?" It seemed like a risk worth taking. They sat by her small table, knees almost touching in the tiny space. The wind hissed against the window, but the room felt warm. "So," Daniel said softly, "I've been thinking." Lily looked up. "About the ring?" "A little," he admitted, "but mostly about you." Lily froze. Daniel rubbed his hands nervously. "The truth is, that day I was sitting in the car because I wasn't sure marrying my girlfriend was right. I kept trying to force something that didn't feel like love anymore. And when your bird stole the ring, it snapped me out of it. Made me realize I shouldn't propose for the wrong reasons." Lily nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, that must be hard." "It was, but I ended things. Honestly and kindly, I hope." "Oh," Lily whispered. "I see." Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice softer now. "And after that, I kept thinking about your attic, and your tea, and the way you laugh like you're surprised by your own voice." Lily flushed a deep pink. "And I realized I wanted to see you again." Her heart thudded. "You did?" "I did," he said with a smile. "Very much." First snow walk. When they finished their buns, Daniel stood and held out a hand. "Come outside with me?" Lily blinked. "Outside?" "Yes, it's snowing beautifully, and there's a Christmas market 2 blocks away. We could walk, if you want." No one had asked her for a walk in years. Maybe ever. She hesitated, but only for a second. Then she grabbed her coat and nodded. "I'd like that." The sparrow chirped loudly as they left, fluffing his feathers in triumph. The world outside was white and glowing. Snowflakes drifted lazily under the street lamps, settling on Daniel's hair and on Lily's eyelashes. He offered her his arm, and after a tiny pause, she slipped her hand through it. They walked past glowing windows, children pulling sleds, the smell of roasted chestnuts in the air. Daniel glanced sideways at her. "You look happy." "I am," she admitted. "It's been a long time since I've felt seen." Daniel stopped walking. "Well," he said gently, "I see you." Her heart thudded. They stood in the snow, snowflakes landing silently on their coats, the world around them soft and hushed. For the first time in years, Lily felt something blooming. Warm, bright, fragile, but real. Hope. Final part. The ring finds its way home. Winter deepened, and with it the connection between Lily and Daniel. They saw each other often, sometimes a short walk before dawn, sometimes a cup of tea in the tiny attic, sometimes long conversations on the staircase that neither of them wanted to end. Snow lay thick across the rooftops, and Christmas lights glimmered softly through frosty windows. Even Mr. Harding began teasing. "Funny thing, your Sparrow spends less time on the window now. Must have made a friend somewhere." Lily only blushed and kept kneading dough. The night everything changed. 2 weeks before Christmas, Daniel knocked on her attic door later than usual. Snowflakes melted on his dark hair, and his breath formed a pale cloud in the cold air. "Come with me for a moment," he asked. "There's something I want to show you." Lily put on her coat, and they stepped out onto the rooftop. Below them, the city glowed under strings of festival lights. The snow fell slowly, ceremonially almost. Daniel turned to her. "Do you remember that day?" he asked softly. "When your Sparrow stole the ring?" Lily smiled. "How could I forget?" He stepped closer. "Back then, I thought the ring was gone. But later, I realized it wasn't lost at all. It just found a better direction. Not for the life I was trying to force, but toward the life that was waiting." He took out a small box. The box. Lily's breath caught. "Daniel." "Wait," he said gently. "I don't want this to feel rushed or strange. We haven't known each other long, but in that short time, I've learned more about you and about myself than I have from people I've known for years." He looked at her with a mixture of calm and vulnerability. "I'm not asking for anything today. Not a decision, not a promise you're not ready to give. What I'm offering is a beginning, a path. For us, if you want it." He opened the box. The ring. It shone just as brightly as the day the Sparrow had carried it away, but now its glow felt softer, warmer, like it finally knew where it belonged. Tears brimmed in Lily's eyes. "I wasn't happy for a very long time," she whispered. "And being with you, it's like the world is waking up again. It scares me, but it feels right. I'm scared too, but what feels right feels stronger than the fear." Lily took a slow step forward and extended her hand. "Then, yes, let's try the path. Together." Daniel's smile was quiet and full. "Together," he echoed. He slipped the ring onto her finger, carefully, reverently, not as a proposal, as a beginning. At that exact moment, the Sparrow swept down from a nearby chimney, landing proudly beside them and chirping with such triumphant enthusiasm that Lily laughed through her tears. "He approves," she said. Daniel nodded with mock solemnity. "I owe him more than I can ever repay. If not for him, I would have walked right past your window." "No," Lily whispered, touching the ring. "If not for him, you would have walked right past me." They stood together on the snowy rooftop while the city glowed below, two lives quietly stitching themselves into one story. And if fate was smiling somewhere above them, it probably did so with a pair of tiny wings. Epilogue. Spring arrived gently. Lily was still working at the bakery, but she laughed more now. Daniel visited every evening, always bringing tea and stories from his architectural projects. Neighbors got used to seeing the Sparrow perch nearby, as if guarding their little beginning. And the ring? It stayed on Lily's hand, not as a rushed promise of marriage, but as a symbol of choosing hope after years of surviving without it. Someday, they would decide their future, but not yet. Today was enough. The attic, the warm evening light, the scent of rising dough, two people who found each other, and the little Sparrow who started it all. The end. That's all. That's my story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to this channel, and we'll meet again to hear more stories by the fireplace.